My name is Camilla Hart, and at 32 I did not expect the deepest bruise on my life to come from my own sister. It landed on a quiet Saturday, my father's 65th birthday, in the small riverfront condo he'd moved into after retiring from his job as a high school shop teacher. Balloons bobbed lazily above a buffet of roasted chicken cornbread and my aunt's famous blueberry bars. Neighbors who'd known us since we were toddlers pressed paper plates into my hands and asked about New York. My mother moved between the stove and the sink with a dish towel slung over one shoulder, humming the tune my father always puts on when he's happy, some old Motown track that is all horn and steady optimism. We were halfway through coffee when Tessa set the bottle down hard enough that the stemware shivered. Her voice cut cleanly through the chatter. "Keep your money, Camilla. We don't need it or you." The room thinned to silence as if someone had opened a window and let the air out. I saw the red crescent, the bottle's wet bottom left on the table runner, the single fleck of wine on my father's sleeve, my mother's hand going slack around a stack of dessert napkins. I heard the radiator tick and the aquarium burble in the corner. Everything but my own breath. I did what I've always done when words fail. I took stock, tucked my chin, and made myself smaller. It wasn't always this way. In Milford, Rhode Island, we grew up at the top of a salt gray house with shag carpet and a slanted attic bedroom. When our parents split, I was 12 and Tessa was 10. Dad wheeled 2 suitcases down the front steps while a nor'easter stitched rain across the windows. Mom cried that first week until the sink overflowed and the dish rack floated like a toy boat. I changed the towels, folded laundry warm from the dryer, and told my sister we would be fine. "Where will Mom get money?" Tessa asked from the bottom bunk one night, her hair smelling faintly of apples from the generic shampoo. "I'll make sure we have enough," I said, and pressed my palm to her crown as if a touch could promise a future. The promise set my days like fence posts. While other kids sought rides to the beach, I babysat and stocked shelves at the pharmacy on Main. I learned how to stretch a $5 bill and to pretend I didn't want things. By junior year, a guidance counselor slid a scholarship brochure across a desk and said, "You can change your story from here." I believed her. I took calculus worksheets to the diner where Mom picked up extra shifts. I studied in the soft light that spilled from the dish pass, memorizing formulas, while the waitress with silver hoops called out pie orders by the slice. I left for Boston University on a scholarship that felt like a rope thrown over a wall. While friends planned spring break, I penciled in office hours and library closings. I learned the grammar of earnings calls, the anatomy of a balance sheet, the etiquette of starving. I ironed one cheap blazer until it shone like patent leather and stood at the back of recruiting sessions, heart hammering at the word opportunity. By 24, I had a junior analyst's badge in Manhattan and a cubicle near a window that overlooked a rooftop garden where no one ever sat. The job was a long equation: 60-hour weeks plus grit equals security for the people I love. I covered the remainder on loans and sleep. Promotions followed in the tired, inevitable way a train keeps time, and I sent money home. A little at first, an envelope for Mom the month the Buick finally gave up a check when the roof leak spread like a dark map across the kitchen ceiling. When Dad needed a procedure, I called the billing office, got put on hold for 22 minutes, and handed my card number to a stranger with a warm voice. When Tessa phoned late, I recognized the particular tremor in her speech that meant a bill she couldn't face. Rent that month. Then 2. Then the deposit on a modest ranch house she and Evan, the boy who used to throw spirals on the Milford Highfield, wanted to buy. Later, the tuition for cosmetology school. Later still, the dream she talked about since she cut bangs on her Barbie dolls, a salon she named LARK and LATHER. 2 years ago, when her sedan died on the shoulder of Route 4, I bought a Jeep Grand Cherokee and kept the title in my name to save on insurance. "It's yours," I told her anyway. I can still hear the spark in her voice when she said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." What I didn't see were the shadows growing around that gratitude. On my rare weekends home, Tessa would touch the strap of my work bag, Italian leather, a gift from a client after a closing, and say, "Big City Camilla, look at you." She would introduce me to her stylist friends with a smile that looked almost right. My sister, Wall Street wonder, when I offered to help tune her pricing menu or suggest a booking system that wouldn't overwork the junior stylist, she would laugh and wave me off. "Not everyone likes spreadsheets," she'd say. I mistook the edge for playfulness. I mistook a lot of things. I landed at my father's party with a navy blazer, a store-bought bouquet, and a blue envelope with 2 business-class tickets tucked inside, and a reservation for a Rhine-Danube river cruise he'd mentioned once, wistful as a child peering into a toy store window. "Take whoever you like." I told him when he opened it, the nice woman from his book club, a friend, anyone. He hugged me the way he did when I graduated, when he whispered, "You did it, kiddo," into my hair. There were maybe 15 of us. My Uncle Ray told the same stories he always does about Dad building a cedar strip canoe in the carport back in '92. A neighbor brought a casserole that tasted like every potluck of our childhood. Tessa decorated well-string lights across the curtain rod, a corkboard of photos in chronological order, Dad with us at the aquarium. Dad with a fish on a line, Dad in a paper crown from a burger joint. In the pictures I am often absent. The void was accurate, and for once I didn't flinch from it. We ate, and we toasted. Mom thanked Dad for always fixing what could be fixed. Evan raised his glass to a man who can MacGyver anything. When the gifts came around, Tessa presented a weekend at a lakeside cabin with a guided morning on the water, and Dad beamed. "You know me," he said, and squeezed her shoulder. He opened my envelope last. When he saw the itinerary, his eyebrows lifted in 2 perfect arches. "This is Camila. This is ridiculous." "It's only time and tickets," I said, and I meant it. For once, I wanted to give him the thing he'd never allow himself to take. That was when gratitude turned into something else in the room. Not from my father, his eyes were wet and bright, but from the corner where Tessa was topping off wine glasses. Her mouth held a smile, her eyes did not. "She's always the big spender," she said lightly to no one in particular. Dad, who is earnest to a fault, tried to stitch the moment together. "Your sister's been very generous, Tess. She helped you get that beautiful spot on Birch Street in the Jeep." "Dad!" Tessa's voice sharpened. He kept going because he believes that praise is balm and that sunlight saves. Both of my girls are successful. Tessa with her growing business cam doing whatever it is she does in those tall buildings. The bottle thumped and the room went quiet. "Keep your money, Camila. We don't need it or you." A single clean slice. No yelling. No theatrics. Just the sentence that found marrow. My first instinct was to apologize to smooth the surface, as I have my entire life. Then I saw Mom's face, the way her mouth shaped the word Tessa without voice. I saw my father pick at the cuff of his work shirt where the thread was coming loose. I saw every guest realize that the part of our family story they'd loved, the tidy myth that we'd held each other up, was in fact complicated and human and impossible to fix in one evening. "Enough," my mother said softly, but the word arrived too late to undo anything. "I was only saying thank you," my father murmured, and I understood he meant it to both of us. Forks made a brittle sound against plates. Someone coughed. I let my hands find my purse and took my coat from the back of a chair. The motions were so practiced they felt like music. I kissed my dad's cheek. "Happy birthday," I said, and the words came out steady, which surprised me. On my way to the door, I passed the corkboard of photographs again. There we were, Tessa with a fish as long as her arm. Tessa holding a sparkler on the 4th. Tessa in a graduation robe that sat wrong on her shoulders. In the spaces where I was missing, I could name my reasons: exams, deadlines, flights to catch. The list was a book I knew by heart. The hallway outside the condo was cool and smelled faintly of laundry detergent. I pressed the elevator button and watched the arrow light up red, then green. No footsteps hurried after me. No one called my name. The elevator side open, and I stepped inside glass walls, blinking the reflection of a woman in a navy blazer, clutching a bouquet she no longer knew what to do with. The doors slid shut. In the faint mirrored echo of myself, I straightened my collar and smoothed my hair with the flat of my palm until my face looked like it belonged to someone who could still solve things. Outside, the river lay black under the street lamps. I walked to the rental car and sat with my hands on the wheel for a long minute before I remembered how to turn the key. The heater coughed awake, sending warm air across my knees. On the passenger seat, the blue envelope glowed faintly under the interior light, as if it had a pulse. I tucked it back into my bag. At the hotel, I thanked the night clerk for the extra key card and rode another elevator in a building where no one knew my name. In the room, I toed off my shoes and unbuttoned the blazer with fingers that didn't feel like mine. The ceiling vent hummed. Somewhere down the hall, ice clinked in a bucket. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the room settle around me, the way a lake goes still after a thrown stone disappears. I had spent so many years believing that money could stand in for presents, believing that if I kept the lights on for everyone else, the glow would count for warmth. In the thin hotel quiet, I could tell the difference. I reached for the lamp, turned it off, and lay back fully dressed, the dark pressing gently against my eyelids. The sentence still lodged exactly where it had landed. "Keep your money. We don't need it or you." The hotel room was still dark when I woke, the kind of dark that feels padded. I lay there with my eyes open, measuring the ache behind them, the sentence from last night echoing like a dropped coin, rolling until it finds a corner. I showered too hot, dressed in jeans and the soft sweater I travel in, and sat at the small desk with its wobbly leg. There was a pen, a notepad emblazoned with the hotel logo, and a rectangle of morning light slowly crawling up the wall. I called Noelle the one person in my life who will not allow me to hide behind efficiency. She picked up on the second ring from Chicago, the clatter of dishes and a radio somewhere in the background. "Talk to me," she said, and I did everything from the string lights in Dad's living room to the wine fleck on his sleeve. When I ran out of sentences, Noelle was silent long enough for me to hear her breathe. "Cam," she said, finally. "Careful with my name, I didn't tell you this because I wasn't sure it mattered." "But maybe it does." I braced without meaning to. "I ran into your cousin Gabe at a conference here last fall." She continued, "He lives near Milford now. We ended up talking about family, about Tessa. He said she tells people she's the one who keeps your parents steady, that she built LARK and LATHER from scratch, that you're too busy being important to show up, so she covers what you won't." The chair under me felt suddenly cheap. "That's not true," I said, not because I needed to defend myself to Noelle, but because the words were a reflex I couldn't contain. "I know," she said. "I also know how pride works and how small towns talk. I didn't want to light a match under anything, but I think someone already has." After we hung up, I opened my laptop. In the soft gray of morning, the familiar desktop icons looked like a set of tools I might wield against a feeling. I typed Tessa's name into a search bar and found what anyone can find about anyone these days: curated squares and captions that hum at a frequency you can mistake for truth if you want to. There was a photo of her standing beside the white Jeep, chin up, hand on the hood. "Rewards for hard work," she'd written. There were reels filmed in the salon sunlight, flaring off mirrors, a soundtrack with an upbeat drumline. From nothing to this one caption said. There were posts celebrating self-made milestones, paragraphs about grit, about building without handouts. I scrolled until my knuckles hurt. I thought of the envelope of receipts I've kept. Like a superstition of auto-pay lines that leave my account so smoothly they barely make a ripple. I opened my bank portal and began to pull statements month after month, year upon year, until numbers stacked into something with weight. Just under 300,000. Seeing it in one place startled me less than the memory attached to each segment of the total. The call at midnight, when her voice flickered between anger and fear. The afternoon I stood in a fluorescent bank lobby, while a woman stapled copies for me the day I picked up the Jeep and drove it to Tessa's house, the sun glancing off the windshield like a benediction. The legal files were where I left them in a folder inside a folder, the digital equivalent of a locked drawer. The salon mortgage list had my name, first black letters with a crisp edge. The Jeep title was in my name alone. Then there were the business credit card statements for LARK and LATHER, the ones I had access to because I'd set the account up originally. I scanned categories in a numb, meticulous way. I reserved for other people's audit salon supply orders, yes. A set of boutique charges that did not match vendor names, no. A trip to Miami last spring labeled staff retreat. $10,000 on the card during a month. Tessa had told me the salon was holding steady but tight. I am very good at solving numeric problems. That morning I let the numbers solve me. I made 3 calls. The first was to Marin Delgado, our firm's counsel, who has a mind like a well-indexed library and a laugh that breaks tension like weather. I did not bother softening the facts. "The vehicle title is yours," she confirmed. "If you want it back, that's not complicated. The commercial loan has your name at the top. If you stop paying the bank, we'll contact the secondary borrower. If the loan goes delinquent, it will touch your credit. Not obliterate it, but leave a mark." I understand, I said, and I did. The The second call was to Keystone Community Bank, the institution carrying the LARK and LATHER mortgage. I asked to end the auto pay from my account. The representative was polite, reading from a script that was kinder than it had to be. "The next payment is in 10 days, Ms. Hart," she said. "Without that, the first notice will go out." "Send it," I said. The third call was to the dealership that handled the Jeep, which referred me to a repossession company their contracts department used for title holder retrievals. The man on the line sounded like he'd been doing the job for 3 decades. "We keep it discreet," he said. "Where's the vehicle usually parked?" "Behind a salon on Birch Street," I answered and gave him the address. "When it's loaded, do you want it delivered to you?" "No," I said. "Please sell it at auction." "Send the remainder to the address on file." I stared at the phone for a long time before I typed a message to Tessa. I wrote it twice to get the nouns and verbs right and left out the adjectives. "Tess, I've canceled the salon mortgage auto pay and scheduled the Jeep to be retrieved. Both are in my name. I believe you when you say you don't want my money involved. I'm aligning things with that." See, I pressed send and blocked her number. It was the only way to keep my hand from reaching back from offering a softer landing out of sheer habit. Calls began arriving in a rush like weather moving across a map. "Mom, what's happening?" "Tessa's crying, and I don't understand. Dad." "You can't be serious, Cam. Gabe." "Hey, I heard some version of something." "Evan, please call me." I responded to none of them. At first, then sent a short note to my parents. "I'm stepping back from Tessa's finances. The Jeep and loan are legally mine. I'm acting within those bounds. I want this handled privately." It felt sterile on the screen, but autopilot language is sometimes a kindness. I checked out of the hotel without finishing the burnt coffee on the desk and drove the hour to the airport in a steady rain, the kind that makes the wipers sound apologetic. On the plane, I turned my phone off and slept in short, sour bursts with my head against the window. Manhattan greeted me with its usual indifference. I took a cab home and locked the apartment that looks like a hotel room that belongs to me and opened my laptop again. An email from Evan waited for me. Subject line, empty body, simple. "Please, don't do this to the salon. It means everything to her." There was a second line softer. "I didn't know you were paying." She said it was a small business loan. I closed the message not out of cruelty, but because anything I wrote then would have been either too sharp or too forgiving. 2 mornings later, my office phone rang at 10:37. A number with a Rhode Island exchange blinked on the display. I answered out of something that felt like duty. "Is this Camilla Hart?" a woman asked, efficient and calm. "This is Dr. Alvarez at Riverside Community. Your sister was brought in from her workplace. She's stable now, but experienced acute anxiety and elevated blood pressure. You're listed as an emergency contact." The chair rolled back a half-inch under me. "Is she alone?" "Her husband is on his way. She asked for you." "Please let her know I called back," I said, "and that I'm glad she's safe." After I hung up, I sat very still, hands under the desk, to keep them from announcing anything. A minute later, the repossession company called to confirm the Jeep had been collected without incident from the lot behind LARK and LATHER. "Clean pickup," the man said. "Keys weren't in it." We got in fine. I pictured the back door propped open with a rubber wedge, the smell of peroxide and hairspray, the hum of dryers. I pictured foils glinting in a client's hair, a receptionist trying to determine whether to look outside or keep her eyes down the tow truck's winch whining as it tightened. I pictured Tessa seeing the angle of the Jeep change the way vehicles look oddly vulnerable when they're lifted by something other than their own power. For a moment, I hated my own imagination. By afternoon, the ripple spread. Milford dilates information like a pupil in the dark. A cousin texted a headline-length sentence. They took her car in broad daylight. A stylist from the salon sent me a message I didn't answer. "Is LARK and LATHER closing? Should we look for other work?" The bank cashier who's known Mom for years called her. Then Mom called Dad. Then Dad called me, voice set. At that disappointing register parents find when they want you to feel small enough to fit back into yourself. "Whatever she said to you, she's your sister," he said. "You don't gut family this way." I could have told him that family doesn't slice a sentence in front of cake and photographs, but I didn't. "I hear you," I said instead, and let him say everything he needed to say until he ran out of words. That evening, the Keystone branch manager visited the salon in person. I know because Gabe sent a photo he'd taken from across the street, a man in a gray suit with a folder under his arm, the LARK and LATHER sign reflected backward in the glass. 2 stylists quit the next day after clients canceled appointments, unwilling to lend their names to a rumor. Evan left me a voicemail where his voice sounded older. "I only found out today how the payments were being made," he said. "I wish I'd known. I don't know what I would have done. I'm sorry." The following morning, my apartment looked like the aftermath of a polite break-in. I had printed too many pages and lined them up on the dining table in neat stacks. Statements, loan documents, screenshots of captions that read like manifestos if you didn't squint, the original lease addendum bearing my digital signature. The blue envelope from Dad's gift sat in my bag by the door, its weight disproportionate to its size, its brightness almost rude against the city's winter light. I made tea, I didn't drink, and stood at the window watching a crane move slowly across the sky like a hand sliding a chess piece. A storm of messages gathered on my phone and then began to thin when I didn't feed it. At lunch, Marin walked past my desk and rested a hand on my shoulder. She didn't ask questions she already knew the shape of. "You okay?" she said. "I'm functional," I answered. "That isn't what I asked." I nodded and kept my eyes on the monitor until she left because meeting kindness head-on can undo me faster than anger. Late that night, the apartment was quiet enough to hear the radiator's small ticks. The documents on the table were squared into an order that satisfied me, even if it changed nothing. I thought of Tessa somewhere in Milford, of the space between us measured not just in miles, but in a ledger neither of us had balanced honestly. I thought of my father's sleeve with the fleck of wine, and the way he looked at both of us as if we were girls again, holding sparklers too close to our hands. The phone buzzed face down, and then again. When I turned it over, there was a text from Gabe. "Town is loud. People talking. Tess is not leaving the house." And a second, "You went too far." I set the phone on the table, not face down, not face up, and stood for a long time in the middle of my apartment, with the city pressed close on all sides. The stacks of paper looked like a map of decisions already made. I could feel both sensations at once, how clean a boundary feels when you finally put it down, and how much it can sting to touch. When I turned off the lights, the glass of the window returned me to myself. A shape in a room, a woman breathing a name that still belonged to me. I stood in the middle of my apartment until the ticking radiator sounded like a metronome for a song I didn't know. Gabe's last text glowed on the table. "You went too far." The words didn't accuse so much as announce like weather. I shut my laptop, slid the stacks of paper back into an accordion folder, and called my managing director to ask for personal leave. He didn't ask for details. "Take the time you need," he said, and the permission felt both generous and late. The flight to Providence was half empty. I watched clouds peel away and return as if the plane were testing a bruise. At the rental counter, I took whatever keys they handed me and drove south on a road I could steer with my eyes closed. Milford lifted into view the way it always does, familiar, and slightly smaller than I remember a diorama you can cup in both hands. I didn't go to Birch Street or to Tessa's house. I drove to Riverside Community, the hospital with the red brick facade and the glass atrium that looks friendlier than a hospital should. My father had picked up volunteer hours there after retirement to shelve large print novels and ferry paperbacks on a cart like a portable library. The lobby still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and vending machine coffee. A hand-lettered sign pointed toward the patient library. Dad was there with his glasses low on his nose, sliding a book into place. He looked thinner around the cheeks, like someone had taken in his face at the seams. For half a second I saw him as a stranger, a man who might hand me a book recommendation and a smile. Then he turned, and all the years arrived between us at once. "Cam," he said, and I heard both my name and the years he'd spent using it. "Hi, Dad." There was a couch near the window. We sat on it because we didn't know how to stand together yet. He studied me with the caution of someone approaching a skittish animal. "She's not doing well," he began, voice flattened to keep it from shaking. "She won't leave the house. Evan's sleeping on Gabe's couch. People are saying all kinds of things. I know you know some of this." I nodded. "I do." He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "You've always been decisive," he said. "You get that from your mother's side. But this..." He put the glasses back on carefully, as if the gesture might rewrite his sentence. This feels like cutting a rope on someone who's still on the cliff. I reached for my phone and opened a folder of screenshots. I passed him one of Tessa beside the white Jeep, a caption about rewards and hard work. Another was self-made, threaded through lines about grit. Another of the salon's mirrored stations in sunshine, with a paragraph about building from nothing. I didn't speak while he scrolled. I let him notice the things I'd stared at until the font swam. She used to show me these, he said, finally thumb hovering over a heart icon as though he might press it. I'd click like and tell her I was proud. You can still be proud of her, I said. But she's told people a different story, and she told that story while the autopay kept drawing from my account, and the car title had my name all over it. He held the phone like it might burn him. I know you've helped, he said more softly. I've said thank you. I'll say it again. That isn't what this is. Then tell me what it is. It's not about thank you, I said. It's about what is true. And it's about the sentence she said to me in your living room like I was a stranger at your party. He looked toward the stacks of paperbacks, their spines like a set of patient teeth. She was hurt, he said. You know how she can get when she's hurt. I do. I said, and let that word carry all the years. I also know what people are like when they're proud. I am not innocent in this. Money is a clumsy way to say I care. But I won't keep pretending I'm not there while I'm the one paying the invoices. He stared at his hands for a long moment, the same hands that taught me to tie a fishing knot to sand with the grain. Even if you're right, he said. Even if she's been foolish and unkind, do you have to scorch the earth? I don't want to scorch anything, I said. I want oxygen and light. I took a breath and steadied my voice. I stopped paying for a business that claims it was built without me. I reclaimed a car in my name. Those acts are clean. Everything else is messy because we are. He looked out the window at a nurse steering a man in a wheelchair, both of them wearing expressions that made me want to be kinder than I know how. Go see her, he said at last. Not as a banker, as her sister. I will, I said. The house on Pine Meadow Drive had a cracked birdbath in the yard and a wreath on the door that had seen better holidays. No car in the driveway. A neighbor's wind chimes clinked like ice in a glass. I knocked twice and waited long enough to hear my heartbeat count the seconds. When the deadbolt slid, it sounded impatient. Tessa opened the door wearing an Ocean State College sweatshirt and a pair of leggings with a bleach stain. Her hair was clean but unbrushed, a queue of curls holding their own conference around her face. The living room behind her was half-shadow blinds drawn a stray bobby pin glinting on the carpet like a dropped stitch. Come to inspect your work, she asked, voice hoarse from either sleep or crying. Can I come in? I asked. She let the door widen and walked back to the couch without looking to see if I followed. Takeout containers colonized the coffee table. A line of unpaid mail sat like a tight-lipped audience on the mantel. When she sat, she hugged a throw pillow to her stomach as if it were a shield. I stood for a second because I didn't know where to put my body. Then I sat in the chair opposite her, the one with a loose armrest that wobbled when you leaned. We stayed like that, two women with nothing left to perform. I got your message, she said, tilting her chin toward the phone face down on the table. Very official. It was meant to be. How long did you plan it? She asked. A small smile that wasn't a smile. I made the calls in a morning, I said. The rest was already true. She laughed once, a sound like air leaving a tire. You would say that. I'm not here to win, I said. I'm here to tell you how it looked from my side and hear how it is from yours. From my side, my car disappeared in broad daylight, like a magic trick everyone was in on but me, she said. From my side, the bankman came into my salon holding a folder, and my receptionist looked at me like she'd never seen me before. From my side, the whole town got louder while my house went quiet. From habit, I wanted to apologize, to take the sharp out of her words, to round it for swallowing. I made my hands stay still on my knees. I read your captions, I said. Her shoulders went up like a drawbridge. Of course you did. You called yourself self-made, I said. I didn't add the rest of the sentence because I didn't need to. She looked at a spot over my shoulder, as if the truth might be written there. You want me to say the exact words that will make you feel right. I want you to tell the truth, I said. And I want to stop living in two versions of our life. She rubbed the seam of the pillow with her thumb until a thread loosened. Do you have any idea what it's like to be compared to you? To have everyone assume you're the standard, and I'm something less. You're the one who left. You're the one with a skyline in your window. I'm the one who stayed in a town where people keep track. You show up, and it's like someone held a light over a map, and I could see every wrong turn I ever took. Even when you say nothing. Especially when you say nothing. I didn't ask to be the light, I said quietly. I didn't ask to be anything but useful. Useful, she repeated, making the word sound both generous and awful. Your usefulness has a signature. It's on my lease. It's on the car title. It's in my receipts. It's on my skin. I know, I said, and the words were hard to carry, hard to offer. I know what my name is on. She looked at me properly then. Her eyes were swollen at the corners, lashes clumped. Did you have to take the car? She asked, voice small as a library. It was mine, I said, and because it was mine, it had become part of something false. I couldn't keep wearing the false. So you undressed me in public, she said. You know that's what it felt like. I do now, I said. I should have seen that when I blocked your number, but I was busy not falling back into the reflex of saving you the way I always have. You hurt me in front of Dad. I moved cleanly because I didn't trust myself to move kindly. She didn't nod, but she didn't look away. We sat with the silence until it stopped performing and became a place to rest. You're going to say this next part like a contract, she said, finally resignation making the sentence soft. I'm going to say it like your sister, I answered. I won't go back to paying your bills. I won't run a salon from a city I don't live in. If I am to be involved at all, it can't be invisible. If you want help, you say you want help, and you say from whom. You stop saying the word self-made, like a charm you add to a photo. You tell the people whose paychecks depend on you what is real, and you tell Evan, all of it. Her face changed 1 degree at a time, as if her muscles were remembering a different use. You want me to humiliate myself, she said, but there wasn't conviction under the accusation. I want you to stop humiliating yourself, I said, and wished I could reach forward to take the sentence back and roughen it, make it less neat. You are the one who has to live inside your story. I can keep writing checks, Tess. I can do it forever, but you will never trust a dime of it if it continues like this. She pressed the pillow harder against her stomach, like she might keep herself from tipping. I hate you sometimes, she admitted. Not you, the idea of you. The version people tell me when they want me to be grateful. The one who glides, the one who always has a solution folded in her pocket. I felt something inside me shift like a drawer closing. I do not glide, I said. I grind. And I have built a life that looks like a hotel lobby after checkout. Don't she set a warning against pity or the appearance of it? I'm not auditioning for sympathy, I said. I'm telling you, I'm not the story you wrote either. Her mouth twitched almost a laugh. So we're both bad writers. Maybe we're just lazy revisers, I said. We kept the draft that worked for who we were at 12 and 10. She snorted at that, then rubbed her thumb over the frayed pillow seam again. Evan's mad, she said into the fabric. Not at you. At me. He says he doesn't care about the money. He cares that I lied by omission until omission was the whole thing. What did you tell him, I asked. That I was scared, she said. That if he saw the ledger, he'd see me differently. That if he knew how much of my life had your name on it, he'd think I was less. What did he say? That he married me, not a caption, she said. A small, miserable smile. It was a good line. He's been sleeping at Gabe's anyway. We were both quiet long enough for a car to pass slowly outside, and for both of us to look instinctively toward the window, a reflex from years of listening for Dad's truck. I can't promise to be good at what you're asking, she said finally. I can't promise to be brave in public or precise in a conversation. I can barely look at my own receptionist. I'm not asking for a performance, I said. I'm asking for an inventory. She set the pillow aside and leaned forward until her elbows found her knees. Without the shield, she looked younger, like the Tessa who used to sleep warm against the wall, so I could be the one who got up first. Inventory, she repeated. Fine. She counted on her fingers like she was remembering a recipe. I took help and called it something else. I called it luck. I called it timing. I called it destiny. I called it anything but Camila. I did that because I was angry and embarrassed, and because every time you paid for something, people loved you more for it. They did. Don't tell me they didn't. I'm not going to argue with your experience of a room, I said. I wasn't in most of them. She nodded at that, a tiny thank you for not telling her what her life felt like. I also, she began, then stopped. She swallowed. I also liked the parts of the story where I was heroic. I liked being the one who stayed. I liked being the one who remembered names and hairlines and who sits in what church pew. I liked being necessary. I like that too, I said, and felt the admission settle into the space like a piece of furniture we would have needed anyway. She rubbed her palms together as if the truth were something she could warm up. What now, she asked, and the question wasn't a plea. It was logistics. Now you tell the people who need telling, I said. Start with the ones who work for you. Then Evan. Then whoever else you decide. Not an apology tour, not a billboard, just the truth in rooms where it matters. She looked toward the mantel, where the male sat toward the blind slats that kept the light from confusing the furniture. I don't know what words to use, she said. I have words for marketing. I don't have words for this. Say it plain, I said. I wasn't honest about who financed LARK and LATHER. My sister helped. I misrepresented that help. I'm correcting it. Her mouth twisted around the shape of those sentences, like she was breaking in a new pair of shoes. You make it sound simple. It isn't, I said, but the first line can be. We sat in the living room while the afternoon thinned into something quieter. The refrigerator kicked on. A neighbor's dog barked twice and then thought better of it. Tessa got up and brought a yellow legal pad from the kitchen. The top page had a grocery list written in 3 different inks. She uncapped a pen and wrote slow enough to make the letters honest. I haven't been honest. She stopped, pen lifted the way a diver hovers above a surface that will make her different once she breaks it. I'm scared, she said. I know, I said. Me too. She glanced up at me surprised. Of what? Of being the person who asks for something I can't bear if I don't get it, I said. Of being the person who leaves a party and teaches everyone a new way to hurt. She put the pen down and looked at me in a way that felt like a bridge being lowered. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. I wanted to hurt the version of you that makes people talk softer when you walk into a room. I know, I said, but you got me anyway. I did, she said, and you got me back. We let that hang without varnish. She picked up the pen again and kept writing. I didn't read over her shoulder. I watched the muscle in her jaw work and the way her hands steadied after the first lines. When she was done with a paragraph, she turned the pad so I could see not as a submission, but as a sharing. The sentences weren't elegant. They were better. Okay, she said. Okay. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We didn't fix anything with a grand gesture. We sat until the room shifted shades and the neighbor's wind chimes moved again. When I stood, the chair's loose armrest wobbled under my hand, and I tightened the screw with my fingers, a small ordinary correction that left no mark. At the door, Tessa lifted her hand toward the lock and then dropped it. Cam, she said. Yeah. Don't block my number again. I won't, I said. Outside, the air had that late afternoon chill that finds the place between your coat and your skin. The sky over the cul-de-sac was a pale gray that made every porch light look warmer than it was. I got in the car and sat there without turning the key, hands on the wheel. A woman who could feel each of the decisions she had made this week, like stones in a pocket, heavy, specific, carried on purpose. I drove to a coffee shop near the river where the barista knows my father by the way he takes his tea. The room smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. I ordered nothing, then changed my mind and asked for whatever was easiest. I took a corner table and opened my phone. There were messages from Mom, short, tentative, asking me if I needed anything. There was one from Evan, just 3 words. Thank you, Camila. I thought about replying. I didn't. I scrolled until I found the photo Tessa had posted months ago of the salon mirrors catching sunlight. I stared at it for a long time and tried to imagine the room with the blinds open. When I finally stepped back outside, the river had turned the color of pewter, and the wind had picked up little shivers on its surface. I walked along the path until I reached the spot where the town keeps a bench in memory of a teacher who used to read poems aloud at the farmer's market. I sat and watched the water move in the same direction it always does, indifferent to both our names, and stayed until the porch lights clicked on one by one up the street. The river kept its steady push until the cold climbed through the bench slats. I texted Tessa a time and place, and walked back toward town with my hands deep in my coat. She chose neutral ground. The small meeting room behind LARK and LATHER, the one with a chipped oval table and a bulletin board crowded with shift swaps. At 10, the remaining team filed in Kay with a towel around her neck. Mira still in a smock, Tomas cradling a mug. I sat near the door. Tessa didn't look at me, she looked at them. I haven't been straight with you, she began, fingers flat on the table like she needed to feel wood. The salon started because my sister funded it. I've let people believe otherwise. That lie is on me. If you need to go, I understand. If you stay, I'll be paying the mortgage from the business account, not hers. I'll show the books monthly. No surprises. No one spoke for a breath. Then Mira asked, "Are we getting paid Friday?" "Yes," Tessa said. "On time." Tomas nodded once. Kay exhaled so hard it made the paper schedule twitch. "Then book me 3 more blowouts," she said, and the smallest smile loosened Tessa's mouth. At noon, we drove to Keystone. The branch manager, gray suit careful diction, led us into his office and closed the door on the lobby's steady bell. I set down a folder and spoke evenly, not for performance, just to keep the pieces in the air. "She's current through this week," I said. "Going forward, the payments come from LARK and LATHER revenues only. I'll guarantee not fund. We'd like to extend the term to reduce the monthly and add a modest reserve covenant so slow months don't knock the legs out." He tapped his pen, did the math on a legal pad, and slid the sheet across the desk. 18 months interest only, then amortize. Business account auto debit on the 15th. Monthly statements to both of you. Reserve floor at 2 payrolls. "That works," I said. "It works," Tessa echoed, as if testing how the words felt in her mouth. We signed. The manager stood, shook our hands, and offered the kind of polite smile people say for willing compliances. Outside, the thin winter sun brightened a strip of sidewalk and not much else. In the car, Tessa stared through the windshield. "I thought you'd take it all away," she said quietly. "I already took what wasn't true," I said. "The rest is yours to carry." That night, she sat at her kitchen table with Evan, a stack of statements between them. She read them out loud. I didn't stay. She didn't ask me to. Later, a text arrived. "He knows. He didn't leave." Days slid into a new pattern. I went back to New York and flew north again 2 weekends later. At the salon, I stood behind the desk and watched the appointment screen fill and thin. I fetched coffee, swept a corner, when a client shook loose a small galaxy of clippings, replaced a dead bulb in a mirror, and left fingerprints I had to buff out. Tessa adjusted the menu, fewer luxury add-ons, more steady services. The second chair stayed empty for a week. Then Alma, a stylist with hands like orchestral conductors, took it for 3 afternoons, then 4. Tips climbed. The register closed with a different sound. On a Wednesday at month end, Tessa printed the profit and loss and set it on the color bar. The bottom line wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "It's not a lot," she said, voice low. "It's not nothing," I said. She opened the banking app and sent the Keystone payment. The confirmation pinged like a small bell. She let the screen glow a second longer than she had to, then locked the phone and slid it away. We gave up the Birch Street corner lease at the end of the quarter and moved 2 blocks over to a second-floor unit above a florist. Fewer windows, better rent. Tessa painted the walls herself, over 3 nights, the scent of fresh latex clinging to her hair. She stripped the branding down to LARK, the ampersand retired like a formal dress. On opening morning, she tied a ribbon across the door and cut it with a pair of barber shears while Alma and Kay clapped. No speeches. At home, my father started coming by the shop on Tuesdays with a paper bag of donuts and a story about whichever neighbor had resurfaced from memory that week. He would sit in the waiting chair, hands on his knees, the soft pride of witness brightening his face. When he left, he wiped his fingers on a napkin and tucked it into his pocket as if he might need it later. Spring leaned in. I learned the walk from the train station to Pine Meadow without checking my phone. I learned which diner refilled tea without being asked. I learned to be in a room without reaching for my wallet like a reflex. For Dad's half-birthday, we crowded into Mom's kitchen, 4 plates of cheap sheet cake, a pot of chowder big enough to mistake for an apology. I handed Dad a small box with a single hand-tied bucktail jig nestled in tissue. "For the flats," I said. He turned it over in his fingers like a found coin and smiled the unguarded smile I remember from childhood photos. There was no envelope, no itinerary. Tessa brought ice and a bag of rolls and stood next to me long enough that our shoulders touched. When Mom asked for a picture, we did not arrange ourselves by height or history. We just stood the way people do when they are in the same kitchen for the same reason. After dinner, Tessa washed the bowls while I dried. Even that felt like an adjustment to some internal scale I hadn't known was crooked. She passed me a ladle without looking, and I hung it where it belonged. On a soft evening in June, LARK closed at 6. Tessa counted the till slip cash into a deposit envelope and left the lights on low. Outside, the florist was packing peonies into buckets. The sun turned the petals into little lamps. We leaned on the railing and watched the town carry itself home. I sent payroll. She said not quite to me. I paid the loan. I have rent money sitting where it should sit. There's $43 left in petty cash and 2 clients rescheduled, not canceled. I nodded. She turned the day written across her face in faint smudges and a bright line where her mask had rested. Are you staying the weekend? Yes, I said. There's a bench by the river I've been meaning to keep. We locked up. I took the trash bag. She took the deposit. Down on the sidewalk, the florist handed us each a loose stem. No charge, just the end of his day. We walked in the same direction, not matching pace, not needing to. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.